Today we're honoring the graduates, and this kind of message is for them, but it applies to every single one of us, and you'll see how incredibly practical it is. And I thought of how to illustrate this at the start, and I thought, all right, this is the hoe that I use to hoe. I've torn up many a ground with this and many a garden, and I really want you to think about this being something that Satan would try to do to destroy a life, okay? To captivate a life, to keep a life from being everything that it was supposed to be. And you know the little cartoon that you have of him with the little pitchfork and everything? All right, we're going to imagine this being sticking up and everything, but each one of these is going to represent something, and it's I-O-U. Everybody say I-O-U. All right, I-O-U, so the I is going to stand for something, the O is going to stand for something, and the U of what Satan is going to try to do in our life to keep us from being as effective as God wants us to be. The I stands for inhabit. Okay, one thing that he wants us to do is he wants us to inhabit our past. And what I mean by that is he wants us to dwell in the past. He wants us to stay in the past. He wants us to live in the past. And one way we do that is by thinking that the past is better than it actually was. How many times have you ever heard the words, the good old days, right? I mean, we've heard that dozens and dozens of times, the good old days. Let me tell you one thing about the good old days. They weren't all that good, were they? I mean, there were tough times in the good old days, just like there are tough times now, just like there will be tough times in the future. We say the good old days, but we're not the first people that overemphasize the past and think it was maybe better than it was. You take a look all the way back in some of the things that we studied a couple of months ago. The children of Israel, when God had delivered them from the captivity in Egypt, and was taking them to the promised land. But then they encountered something tough. They encountered some difficulties. So then you had the Back to Egypt committee, right? They got together and they started talking about Egypt. Now watch how they talked about Egypt. Knowing how bad it was, watch how they talked about it. Here it is. Numbers 11:4 says, "The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again the Israelites started wailing and said, 'If only we had meat to eat.' We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and onions and garlics, and just think about our breath." It didn't say that, okay. But then now we've lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. And think of this. I mean, here they're talking about Egypt here they're talking, saying, "Oh man, remember Egypt? Oh yeah, good times, weren't they? Oh, the best." Those things Egypt was so fantastic. What was Egypt? I mean, they were in bondage in Egypt. They were slaves in Egypt. They were cried out for 400 years, "God, please, 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 please deliver us from Egypt." And now here's this weird thing. They're thinking like Egypt was Club Med, right? That's what they're talking about it like. But maybe that's why God tells us this, warns us in Ecclesiastes 7:10. He says, do not say, "Why were the old days better than these?" For it's not wise to ask such questions. In Isaiah 43:18, it says this, don't miss this, "Forget the former things." This is God telling us, forget the former things. Do not dwell, don't live, don't inhabit the past. And here's why God says to do that. Obviously, we're supposed to learn from the past. Obviously, we're supposed to learn from our mistakes and our successes and things like that. And if we don't learn from the past, we are doomed to repeat the past. But he says, here's why he says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland." God's saying this, don't dwell on the past because if we dwell on the past, if we live there, then we're going to miss what God wants to do right now. We're going to miss what God wants to do right now in the present and in the future in our life. But the other way we dwell on the past is about the bad things that have happened to us. And there's bad things that have happened to each one of us in the past, aren't there? I mean, unless you've lived in a cave somewhere, a bubble somewhere, you have had bad things happen to you. Sometimes because of the decisions you've made. We can all testify to that. Sometimes the decisions because of other people that have made and it's hurt us. Then there's other times that we've been hurt by the past because we just live in a world that's a fallen world. And because of that, bad things happen to everybody. Even bad things happen to good people. And so I remember one time when I was just going to go into Little League for the first time. And for some reason, I love baseball, I love every sport, but I was terrified of being hit in the head with a baseball. I mean, it was just like this, this abnormal fear. I didn't have many fears growing up, but that was one of them. It was just my worst case scenario was getting hit in the head with a baseball. Don't ask me why. That terrified me so much, but it did. And I remember the first practice I ever had in Little League in my entire life. I'm there, and we had a great pitcher for our age group. I mean, a really fast pitcher for our age group. Third pitch I ever face in Little League in my life. I don't even have to tell you what happens. Right smack in the eye. I had the shiner for about a week, the whole thing. And I'll tell you, for that entire season, I either did one of two things when I got in the batter's box. I either struck out or I walked. There was no hit whatsoever. Because every pitch that came, man, I bailed out. I'm thinking this thing's a comet heading straight at me, right? I bail out of every single one. And it wasn't until, the whole year, and the next year, for some reason, it occurred to me. I could spend this next year either doing one of two things, either worrying about focusing on being hit or focusing on hitting, right? And when you focus on being hit, you never get a hit. When you focus on hitting, you may even get hit. You're playing baseball, but you're going to get some hits, and you're going to get some swings, and you're going to get some runs and everything. And I really think there's a lot of us that we play like, we live like I played that year. And I'm not demeaning being hit in the head, right? Every one of us have been hit in the head by life. Every single one of us knows what it feels like to get cold cocked by life one way or the other, and it hurts, and it breaks our heart, and it's painful, and I don't undervalue that. But the thing is that happens is if we just stay there. Satan wants us to freeze frame there. Satan wants us to stay in that painful moment in the past, and it keeps us from living life. It keeps us from getting hits and home runs and runs in the present if we focus on the past. And really, good or bad, Satan wants us to focus on the past, and that would be like driving, looking in the rearview mirror. Rearview mirrors are important, aren't they? In fact, one time I remember driving a car without a rearview mirror, and it's just like, it just seems wrong, right? There's just weird to not be able to look backwards and things. And there's times a rearview mirror is good because it calls us to see what's behind us. And it's good to see what's behind us. Again, we should learn from our past. Good or bad, we should learn from the past. But if you drive looking at the rearview mirror, what's going to happen to you eventually? You're going to wreck, right? Because you were meant to drive forward, to look forward. You weren't meant to drive looking in the past. The same way we were not meant to live looking in the past. We were meant to live looking forward. So don't dwell on the past of thinking it was greater than it was, or don't think of it as just stay in the pain of our past, that we need to go on. So that's the first thing. Satan wants us to inhabit our past. The second one, the O, is he wants us to obsess over the future. And that what I mean by that is to just, again, it's really important to look at the future. Really important to plan for the future. Proverbs, the book of Proverbs talks about that so much. God says without a vision, his people perish for lack of vision. He gives us dreams and visions, the Bible tells us. He cares about our future, and he thinks we should be involved in our future and care about our future as well. But a lot of times we focus on the future and we don't live today. And I mean, I've been a pastor for a while now, and I think the greatest fears that attack us are not the ones that we think of, like fear of spiders or fear of heights or fear of that. The ones that captivate our life more than others, I think, is the fear of the future. I know so many people that are just so scared of what's going to happen to me. Am I going to be taken care of? Are we going to have enough money? What's going to happen in my career? What's going to happen after college? What's going to happen after high school? What's going to happen now that I lost my job? What's going to happen that I'm retired? Whatever it is, we have this thing about being scared about our future. And Jesus gives us this incredible word that was my devotion, one of my devotions this morning. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow. Do you hear that? Some of you need to hear that. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So either that we focus on the future and it being, maybe even we picture it even, so great that it's like this la-la land out there, and it's going to be tough too. The future's going to be tough, but it's going to be wonderful too. And so we either have this tendency to obsess with the future. And But the other thing is Satan wants us to, he wants us to undervalue today. Think of the only time that we don't value is today, right? I mean, think of it. Think of our words. We waste time. We kill time. I heard, just somebody the other day saying, man, I hate Mondays. Another person said, I can't wait till Friday. Well, what about today? That's the one time we don't value today, whatever day that is. And there are some people in the Bible that gives us an example of what it means to value today. One of them is Joshua. Joshua was spending his last, this is the last time he ever spoke to the children of Israel. This is his final speech before he passes away. So things really important on his heart. He's led Israel well for a generation, and now he gets up. But watch what he doesn't talk just about the past. He does talk about the past, but then he talks about a moment called today. Here's what he says: choose for yourself this day. Today, not tomorrow, not some other day, but today. Choose yourself today who you're going to serve. But as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. David said this. He said, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. That was what my dad, after he became a Christian, he woke me up to that every day of his life after that. That's a good way to wake up, though. It really is, by the way, of just, a recognition of today's the day God has plans for today. But also Jesus, give us today our daily bread. And he also said, I'm going to go back to what I just read. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough struggle of its own. He's saying, if we value today, tomorrow is going to take care of itself. And this really makes life easy when you think about it. If we have to worry about the whole year, 365 days, man, we're going to go crazy if we're that far ahead and just thinking about that and obsessing, and that's where we're living, just 360. But how about today? Can we handle one day? We can't handle 365, but can we handle one day? Because one of the verses that I wake up to every day of my life too, that I try to say, is this: that the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. And to think that every day that God has a plan for that day. Every day God has something that he wants to do. And so here's some principles about today. So here it is, that he wants us to inhabit our past. He wants us to obsess about the future. He wants us to undervalue today, but God has a different plan, and here's what it is. First thing is that understanding that each day has a purpose. Life has a purpose, right? I mean, that's one thing we saw as we went through the story, that there's a big picture that God has. That our life, that this world is heading somewhere, that this universe is heading somewhere, that history is his story. Life is going somewhere, that it's all going to make sense. There's a big story that God is writing right now. But there's also the lower story that you and I are living a part of, that your story, that your life has a purpose. Not just life has a purpose, but your life has a purpose. That according to the Bible in Ephesians 2:10, it says that you are, hear this, that you are God's masterpiece, okay? That you're God's masterpiece, and you're created for a purpose. You're created for a destiny. You have a destiny. Your life has a purpose. In fact, God says, Jeremiah 29:11, that God knows the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So your life has a purpose. But how about this? And probably every single one of us would go, okay, I can go there. I can go that life has a purpose and my life has a purpose. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But how about this? Have you ever thought every day of your life has a purpose? Every day of your life has a purpose. Again, steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They're new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. Every day God has mercies for you. Every day God has some faithfulness to show you. Every day God has blessings for you. Every day God has some divine appointments. Every day he wants you to make a difference in somebody's life. Every day he wants you to listen to him. Whatever it is, every day it's like dun, 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 dun. You have this mission, right? Every day there's something that's going to be amazing that day. And I'll tell you, if you understand that every day has a purpose, it'll make you wake up, and it'll even make you wake up on Monday and go, okay, Monday's going to be okay too. That Monday's even Monday, tomorrow, God has a purpose for tomorrow for you. Another thing is that life consists of a series of today. Every day we're heading somewhere. every day of our life that we're heading somewhere in life, correct? And so, and think about this. The average person in this room, every guy in this room is going to live about 27,000 days. You ladies are going to live a couple thousand more days than we are, according to statistics, right? But the thing is that one step may not make that much of a difference, right? But if I take 27,000 steps, I'm going to end 10 miles where I am right now. Every day, that one day may not seem like that big of a difference. But you do 27,000 days and put that together, you're going to head somewhere. You're going to head one direction or another with life. And days that you put together make a difference. You know, something that we did a few years ago, we had something called the Couch to 5K in 30 days. And there were people that a lot of you did this. And there were people that had never, some of them had never exercised before in their life. And certainly none of them, most of them had never run before in their life. But they're saying, I've got this dream over here that I'm going to actually run a 5K. And they start out and they're just walking. And then they do more and more and more. And pretty soon, one day, it didn't make that much of a difference. 30 days together and they were able to do a 5K. Because that's what happens when you put sequencing together. I don't know if you saw this a while back, but there was a lady who was a day worker. The most she ever made in her life was minimum wage. Okay, put that in there. The most she ever made was minimum wage. She died, and they went into her house to try to take care of things, and they found that she had been putting money in her mattress over the years. Do you know how much money they found? $1.1 million. And all she made was minimum wage. A little over a lot of time makes a huge difference. In fact, that's straight out of Proverbs, where the Proverbs 13:11. He who gathers money little by little makes it grow. Something that many of you discovered was this, that you just read a page or two of the Bible every day for about 5 or 6 days a week, just a page or two. And what you found out, that over 31 weeks, you found out you read half the Bible as you did that. If you read one chapter a day, you're going to read the New Testament in a year. If you read 4 chapters a day, you're going to read the entire Bible in a year. A little over a lot of time makes a big difference, as long as we focus on doing something that day. How we live, third thing, is how we live today will impact our tomorrow. Whether your health tomorrow, your health 5 years from now will be determined to a big fact what you do right now, the decisions that you're making today. Where you are financially tomorrow, and how distant that far tomorrow is based on decisions that you make today. Where you are relationally, in any relationship in your life, your relationship with your spouse, the relationship with your kids, your relationship with your friends, relationship with the people at church, whatever that is, tomorrow is going to be determined a lot by what we do today, the decisions and the actions that we make today. And I want you to think about this. People in this room, we're going to have about 1,000 people, 1,200 people that are watching this online, and welcome to those who are online. We are very glad that you are with us today. That every single person that's hearing the sound of my voice, that there's going to be people, and I hope most of you, I hope everyone, but statistically, that there's going to be people that are a lot further on in their faith. Their faith is growing. They're a stronger Christian a year from now than they are today. They're going to be closer to God, and they're going to see God use them in ways that they never dreamed a year from now than they are today. There's others, they're just going to go through the motions, and it's just going to be a holding pattern and stay. You haven't turned your back on God, but you're really no further down the road. Then there's other people, statistically probably in this room, that you're going to turn your back on God, walk away from the faith, certainly walk away from church. I pray not, but that's statistically what would say that would happen. And what's the difference? What's the difference between the people who are way down the line and people who are here, or people that are over there? What's the difference? Just what they do every day. That day, what are you going to do that day? And a series of todays ends you up either closer to God and stronger in the faith, or away or right out where you go, depending on what you do every day between now and then. And here's an important question, all right? Hear this question. What can you do today that will bless your tomorrow? What can you do today that will make your future a better place? Right? What can you do with your relationship with God today that'll do that? What can you do financially? What can you do educationally? What can you do relationally? What can you do, whatever it is, any of those things in your life? What can you do today that'll make your life better in the future? Another thing is, so what do we do about this? How do we make today count? I think, first of all, understand that there's two destinations in life, right? Just what we were saying, that every day, say that's the goals that God has for your life, that you have for your life. This is what you would call lack of success or failure in life, or what God would. Every day, again, we're heading towards one of those two destinations. Every day we're taking a step in one of those two directions. Which one are we going to do? That's how important the fact of today is. And one thing I love about Crossroads is we are a church that is not a one-day-a-week church. We have, our doors are open all the time, 7 days a week, and we are blessing communities. We're blessing lives in the community as they come in to this church, where we have the homeschool meet here. And one of the groups that we have is AA. And I walked by that the other day, and it was just beautiful seeing the room just packed with people that want to get away from alcoholism. And here's the thing that I thought so neat is their motto is what? One day at a time, right? And if you would ask them, as they're starting out in that and saying, do you think you could go the rest of your life sober? And they'd probably answer you really honestly, no way. I know myself, no way that could happen. But here's the thing that they do. Can you do it one day? Okay? Might be able to do one day. I think with God's help, I can do one day. And what's wild is one day turns into 2 days, which turns into 3 days, which turns into a week, which turns into a month, which turns into a year, which turns into the future of their life in sobriety, all because they just live it one day at a time. Negative or positive, what can you do to live life one day at a time? The next thing is make good life decisions and then manage those decisions daily. Successful people make decisions in life, and especially the earlier in life, the better, and then they spend the rest of their life managing those good decisions. I think we spend way too much time not too much time, we overemphasize the decisions and not as much managing the decisions, because a lot of times we make decisions and the decisions are good, but we're not living out those decisions. An example of that would be, think about people that make a decision to get in shape on January the 1st, but they don't manage that decision the rest of the year. If they do, they're going to be in better shape a year from now than they were on January the 1st. An example for me in my life was I made a decision early on when I became a Christian that I wanted to grow in my faith. I didn't want to just stay there. So the other decisions, I just had to manage that decision that I made. So it was never a decision, okay, am I going to have devotions today? I didn't have to ask that question because I already made the decision. Now I'm just managing and living out that decision that I made. Am I going to go to church this week? From the time I was a Christian, never asked that question. You know why? Because I wanted to be in an environment where I was going to grow in the faith. I made the decision. Now I'm just managing that decision. I want to grow in my faith, so I'm doing mission projects and things like this because I want to grow in my faith. So if we make those decisions now, what are the decisions you're going to do that are going to make that decision happen? How are you going to manage that decision to make it actually happen? So decision making is a one-time decision, and it's easy. Decision managing is a day-to-day thing, and it's a lot more difficult. And third thing is this: understand that there's a difference between success and recognition of success. Okay, and many people believe that success is a place, is an event. That they have destination disease. When I graduate, then I'm a success. When I graduate from college, then I'm a success. When I get my job, then I'm a success. When I get the corner office, when I make a certain amount of money, when I get the promotion, whatever it is that you go, when I do this, then I'm going to be a success. When I get married, then I'm going to be a success. Whatever the thing is, it is. And here's the thing, that a lot of times we look at it in an event, but we can be a success every day of our life, and don't forget that. There are moments in life where we are recognized for the success that we've done, but every day can be a success. In other words, God bless you graduates, and man, we want to honor you today. You are, man, what you've done is absolutely fantastic, and we honor you today for that. But notice something, you were a success. This isn't the first time you were a success. What you've done to get to this point was a success. Every time you showed up to class, every time you did the assignment, every time you studied for the test, every time you studied for the quiz, every time you did the project, you were a success. Now we're just recognizing the successes that you've done along the way. And so here's the question: what makes a successful day? You ever thought about that? And maybe it's simpler than what we think. Maybe it's just trying to be faithful to God that day. That whatever, just like Jesus, Hearing what the Father, seeing what the Father did and do it. Hearing what the Father says and do it. Maybe it's just, a day. I think it's a successful day if we just bring a smile to the face of God, to the heart of God. A successful day if we made a difference in somebody's life positively. A successful day if we're just a little closer, a little more further along in the faith than we were before. And so here's a big thing too. Understand that our idea of success, this is huge, and this is something that God has been working on me. Understand our idea of success in a day may be vastly different from God's. Amen? Because think of it, your idea of success for a day may be that you make the big sale. God's idea of success for that day may be that you touch the life of a coworker. Your idea of success for a day may be that you get the whole house clean. God's idea of success maybe for you that day is that you just pour into one of your kids who just needs mom or needs dad that day. I learned this, I think, in a powerful way in Brazil one time when I was on a mission trip, and we'd seen a lot of people come to faith in Christ, and it was so cool. A friend and I there's these two young men that palled around with us wherever we went. They just wanted to be part of whatever we were doing. One was 14 years old, one was 12 years old, and just great guys. Loved them, had a lot of fun with them and everything. They lived in the church, okay? They lived in the church. Their mom worked at the church. They lived in the church. And I remember one time I was supposed to speak at the biggest Methodist church in this entire city of several million people. And there's between 500 and 1,000 people waiting for me, waiting for us to go minister there. And I'm waiting for my contact. I have no way of getting there. I'm waiting for him, and he's late. And I don't mean late, I mean late. I'm looking 30 minutes, I'm looking 45 minutes. We were gonna get there early, and now he is an hour late for getting there for the service. That means there are 500 or 1,000 people who have been waiting for me for an hour to show up. I'm hacked at this point, okay? And then all of a sudden, we're making the most of the opportunity. I talked to the guys and said, hey, when did you guys become Christians? And I'd assumed, right? I mean, they lived in church. They literally lived in church. They said, we're not Christians. And I found out that day that my idea of success for that day was to preach to 500 or 1,000 people. God's idea of success that day was to lead two young men to Jesus Christ. And sometimes we have a different view of success than God does. And numbers are not as important, maybe, for God. And the next thing is be here now. One thing I love, I was asking a worship design team, I was saying, okay, how do you say, something, what's something that's just in the moment all the time? And Beachy said something that beautifully goes, a dog. And it is, right? A dog is always in the moment, right then. A dog's never in the past. A dog is always, what the thing is of just, I love you now, I love you now, I love you now, I have food now, food now. It is now. They are absolutely in the moment. And one of my new goals in life is to live like a dog, right? I want to live in the moment. I want to not just live in the past, not just live in the future, but right now of sucking the marrow out of right now in the day. And this generation, probably of any generation that's ever lived, probably has the biggest struggle with that, don't we? You know why? I mean, thinking of this. There's one, I ate with a family this week in our church, and they have a rule you take your cell phone and you leave it in one room as you go to the kitchen and eat as a family. Because you know why? Because they wanted to be there with each other. You don't want to be everybody somewhere else. And imagine if we as a generation just said, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to always be somewhere else, wherever we're not. We're going to engage right now where we are with the people around us. We're going to live right now with the people around us. We're going to suck the marrow out of today for everything it has. And the next thing is make every day a masterpiece. A few years ago, I had an opportunity before he died to meet John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach for the UCLA Bruins, who in anybody's mindset would be in the top 3 of the greatest coaches of all time. He had a motto, and it was make today a masterpiece. And I remember him telling a story one time about he said that he was looking at a player that was obviously not giving it his best. And he said, and he came up to the young man and he said, I know what you're thinking. He said, I know you're thinking that tomorrow you can make up for what you didn't do today. But he said, it's untrue. He said, the best you can ever give in one day is 100%. So give it your best today. And I thought, imagine if we really viewed every day as a blank canvas, a gift from God, a gift from God that it's a new beginning, a fresh start every day. And every day of our life, we're going to paint something on this canvas. Every day is a blank canvas. We're going to either paint something ugly on here, and we're going to paint things where we hurt people, and we're going to paint things that we've said things, and it's going to be an ugly picture. Or we're going to paint something beautiful, where we gave it our best, where we gave life the gusto, where we gave it our best every single day. And can you imagine a difference in a life it would be if we woke up every day and this is what we pictured. And we said, God, I give you today. I give you today, and I want today to count. I want to seize this day. I want to make it count for eternity. Can you imagine if we really understood that Satan wants us to just think about, to inhabit the past and live there. He wants us to obsess over the future and live there. Or he wants us to undervalue today. But can you imagine what would happen if we seized the day?